Okay, we are actually going to try this time, and I really hope it works. Hi, it's been a really long afternoon already. So, and Brent is staying late so that we can chat with him. So, thank God for Brent Smith. Okay, so when he joins on, we'll be able to chat a little bit about the things I've been trying to talk to you guys about for an hour now. Hopefully, my video, orientation, sound, everything good. My video should be horizontal. You should not see half of my face. If you do, let me know. Thanks for being with us. Happy Friday. Okay. We're going to get this started. Yay. Okay, we're going to try this time. I really hope it works because I know you guys have, we were going to do something on Zoom, and then I was like, people have questions for you that I can't answer. So we're really trying to make this work, and I think it's going this time. Praying to God. I think he's going to be here. Not God, but Brent. I think we're good. Hey! There it is. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me all right?
I can't hear you.
Can you not hear me?
Not really. Okay, wait. Okay. Can you talk?
Yeah? Can you hear me?
Okay. Can you guys hear him? Back off, Bob. My dog is up here. Sorry, guys. Okay, it is time now. Okay, I'm just asking everybody if everybody can hear you, Brad, because you're kind of quiet. I don't know if it's...
So, I'm talking pretty loud.
How can you get closer to your...
Sure.
You can hear him, Ansel? Okay, it seems like we can hear you. I just can't hear you as well as I want to, apparently. So if I look at you like you're crazy, it's because I don't know what you said. I'm just kidding. Okay, so Brent, first of all, thank you. I know we've been like trying to figure this out for the last hour. I've talked with Brent several times, and he has had his hands full. You just started in, when did you start again?
I started in January.
Yeah, so you've had your hands full. I mean, you've had a huge task ahead of you. So you just gave me the latest numbers. Let's break down. Right now, Operation Lone Star is something you guys joined in on. You're the only county that is charging for trespassing right now. Am I correct?
Val Verde is doing some as well, and you know they're pretty limited though on the ones they're actually charging. I think. I mean, I'm not gonna cite their numbers, but I mean they might have 5% of the total arrests. I'm not sure. Okay. But for trespassing alone, yeah, we're at right now from August to now, we're looking at 2,609 arrests total.
Okay, and so with that, so 2,609 arrests in mere months, and that in Kinney County, break down the population of Kinney County and who mostly lives there.
Well, it's mainly ranchers and ranchers, you know, property owners, agricultural people. We probably have, you know, a little over 3,000 people in the county. It's a pretty large county. We share about 16 miles of border with Mexico. And most of our traffic, though, actually comes in from Val Verde County and Maverick, almost like a funnel, trying to get into Highway 90 and going north. And so, you know, we don't have, I've never seen any give ups, you know, or, you know, we don't have a port of entry. So it's basically the epicenter of all the smuggling activity that goes on the highways and through the ranches.
Right. And so you have these 2,600 arrests here, these charges against these folks. And what you were saying to me, Brent, is that what's really convoluted in this situation is that there's some assumption that these trespassing situations have anything to do with immigration. They don't. It has to do with, are you on property that you're not supposed to be on? Do you have permission from the landowner? So talk about that a little bit and how that's getting kind of misconstrued in all of this.
Yeah, you know, and what's funny is that you know, I took office in January, and before that I was in oil and gas law. And so, but the first case I ever had was a trespassing case. And it was actually, you know, 2 U.S. citizens that trespassed over a fence into someone else's property during hunting season. And so that, you know, and then we have another case right now that with an individual trespassing onto a private, or not a private, a storefront that they've been warned not to enter again. So, you know, again, U.S. citizen. And yes, the vast majority of trespassing cases I have are illegal immigrants trying to come over the border illegally. But it doesn't mean that that law doesn't apply to U.S. citizens. It sure does, and we've been prosecuting those as well. Well, and the other thing to point out is under Operation Lone Star, most of the smugglers that are driving the cars are U.S. citizens. So to say that prosecutions are only for or for illegal aliens is absurd, because we're prosecuting U.S. citizens for transporting them, and we're also prosecuting illegal aliens for transporting them. There's no different treatment that they get under Operation Lone Star for prosecutions. I mean, if you're transporting them, you're transporting them. Period.
But the issue at hand right now is the legality of it all, right? We are seeing just this last week, the first case came out, and I told you, I said, I feel like this is a slippery slope. This is going to open up Pandora's box for this, and it is. I mean, we're now seeing 440 cases that have been filed in Kinney County, taken to Travis County to be challenged. So talk about that, and talk about the validity of that, if that can stand, and where you guys are at in that fight.
Well, it started with one case being filed in Travis County to get a dismissal, and the person in question was, arrested in Kinney County, arraigned in Kinney County, magistrated in Kinney County, and he's currently, facing prosecution in Kinney County. And so what the defense lawyers did is they filed that same case in Travis County to try to get a favorable ruling from a judge in Austin. And the judge did come down and said the way this person was prosecuted is unconstitutional. But the thing is, that's in Travis County. They have no jurisdiction authority in Kinney County. I can tell you right now, the guy is still being prosecuted. That dismissal order is a nice piece of paper, but it means absolutely nothing in Kinney County. So,
but does jurisdiction really matter? I mean, is if they're saying it's not constitutional, it's not legal, like, break that down, because there's been people that have had these conversations. So, explain that, why jurisdictionally this doesn't work.
The jurisdiction is everything. We can have a case here, and we can open for a case in Lubbock County in North Texas, but it means absolutely nothing because we don't have any jurisdiction there. The only jurisdiction that is valid in Kinney County is the county court, the district court here in Valverde County in Del Rio, and then the Court of Appeals in this circuit. In Travis County, you have the Travis County Court, the Travis County District Court, and then whatever I think it's a third appellate court in Travis County. And so there's three different circuits. It's kind of like saying the Supreme Court of California came down with a ruling that said this state law in California is unconstitutional, and since Texas has a similar law, that state court applies in Texas. It doesn't. It's the same comparison. Each county is its own jurisdiction to some degree. Now, if the Court of Criminal Appeals, which is the highest court in criminal matters, said that'd be a different story. But Travis County District Court making a ruling has absolutely no effect here on the dismissal.
I mean, they obviously think it does, right?
Because they did it, a political stunt. They did it. It was a political stunt. They wanted to get the media headlines, and they did, and that was the reason it was done.
So do you think, now that's kind of a perfect segue. Do you think that kind of opened the door for this investigation that the Texas House Democrats are calling for into Operation Lone Star?
Not that specific case. No, the Democrats in Texas have made a similar call before. It was almost verbatim language. They added to it some, but a similar letter, I think, was mailed or sent to DOJ about a month ago, I believe. But I think this latest one included a couple other things. But what I'll say about that letter is it's amazing how these politicians purport to say that they're concerned about their constituents. What they should be doing is writing a letter to the Department of Homeland Security requesting that they secure the border. But instead, they're complaining that their own state is trying to do the job of the federal government. That's ridiculous that they have the audacity to send a letter to the DOJ trying to tell Texas not to keep trying to protect its own citizens, their own constituents. That tells you where their loyalties lie. It's in DC and not their own constituents.
So what do you think would happen? Say they walk Operation Lone Star back. I don't know how that would work, because I know that Governor Abbott can decide what happens in Texas, but I know that the federal government is always bigger, right? So if they decided to put the kibosh on his operations, what would that mean for Kinney County at this juncture?
When you say they, who?
Like if the federal government said Operation Lone Star has to cease to exist, or else.
If the federal government said that, it would come back to the governor of Texas. What does the governor of Texas do? Now, if the governor of Texas caves to that pressure and says, okay, I'm calling off Operation Lone Star, that would be his prerogative. The governor could do that, or the governor could ramp it up and do more to protect the border. You know, under Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution, he has enough authority to do whatever he needs to secure the border. If that even includes shutting down highways and putting National Guards on the border to repel anybody coming in, he could do that. Well, there'd be a lot.
So then that got asked you this question. Then a lot of people are saying, then why isn't he shutting the border down on the Texas side? We know that I've seen it. I'm driving the Texas border. There's holes everywhere. So if he has the right to do that, then people are saying this is kind of the dog and pony show, just some, cars on the side of the road for optics. Could he do more?
Yes. Okay. Yes, he can. He can. Under Article 1, it even goes as far as saying a state can declare war without the consent of Congress if it's actually invaded or it's an imminent harm. So, I mean, if a state can declare war without the consent of Congress when it's invaded, I would think securing a border would pass under that, that opening. So
what are opportunities? What are opportunities that you see, Brent, that aren't being handled right now with the operations that are in place? What are opportunities for the governor?
Well, the easiest way to solve this is for Mexico to do their part as a neighbor to stop them from coming through Mexico. And to do that, you have to use economic pressure. That's really the only way to make Mexico do that. So all the roads going to the port of entries are state owned. The only roads in, if I recall correctly, the only roads in Texas that are federally controlled are the interstates. So all the other roads going to the port of entries are state controlled. The governor could shut down every port of entry and say, look, Mexico, until you get it under control on your side, all millions and millions of dollars of commerce that you get every day is no longer. And
well, we saw what happened in Del Rio. It was devastating.
Yeah. I mean, and that was only for a day or 2 days that they closed.
Days, yeah. A weekend.
Yeah. And so if you closed all the port of entries, the amount of money Mexico would lose from that occurring would drastically exceed the money that they're getting from the cartel activity and human smuggling. Interesting. So, and what I would do is once that was under control, you open up one port at a time. Like, you have to treat them like a child. I'll open up this port and then open up that port. And if everything's still good, then, we'll open them back up again.
You gonna go powwow with Mexico?
Well,
tell them they're not going to do that on their own accord, man. They're not going to do anything. No. I've talked to them, talking to Chamber of Commerce presidents. They're like, we didn't invite them here and they don't want to stay here. So why are we going to do anything?
Well, you have to use financial pressure. Money talks in Mexico. Money talks. And so you have to use financial pressure. I mean, and you can put the National Guard on the border and prevent the entries. That's the main thing is once they enter the U.S., there's a whole lot of issues that happen very quickly. You got to prevent the entry to begin with.
The send them back thing, it's not like that's not a thing. You can't just go, hey, you guys got to turn around. Once they hit U.S. soil, there are issues legally.
Yeah, it becomes more complicated for sure. But if you prevent the entry to begin with, that's the solution to do that.
Okay.
But yeah, that's my opinion anyway.
Well, okay, so you guys, that's Brent's opinion on what Governor Abbott could do more of. So going back to these cases that are being filed, you guys are still going full steam ahead. You're still doing the same thing you guys were doing with trespassing apprehensions and things like that. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, trespassing and evading arrest are the main ones I handle. So I don't handle the felonies. I only handle misdemeanors. Okay. The felonies here are handled by the district attorney. So I handle all the misdemeanors associated in the county. And we're doing evading arrest, trespassing, and we're still doing the same thing. We're going ahead. We have a lot more resources than we did a month ago. We have
Why is that?
The Texas Military Department has sent paralegals into the courthouse to try to help with the caseload, which has been a tremendous help.
And is that part of Operation Lone Star?
Yes,
okay.
It is.
Okay, so with these cases, what does the fight look like? I think you and I, when we were talking, I believe you said that is Paxton involved? Is he are you guys fighting this? Like, what's the situation right now with these cases? With number one, the Ecuadorian case, that's the first one. That was the one that started this kind of. So what does the fight look like there?
So you're talking about the cases in Travis County?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the fight is more of an appellate procedure issue. But yes, the AG, I believe, is going to be intervening in those cases if he already hasn't. Basically, you know, well, without getting into a lot of legal strategy and jargon, it's going to be in the appeals court, and all that kind of thing takes time. It's slower than I wish it was. But yeah, the fight's going to be in the appellate side of it, which is kind of complicated. But I believe, you know, several actors from the state are going to be getting involved in it. It's by no means, you know, done. I think it's just beginning, actually.
Oh, okay. So buckle up. Good. Okay. So
that's for sure.
Okay. So with that said, with these cases that are moving forward, you guys have all of these moving parts that you have to deal with over there. Does this situation with those 444 cases, is that an additional mess for you guys? I mean, you were already up to here with caseloads. So is this a new issue that's just piling on?
Right. Yeah. But we're having a lot of help. The Border Prosecution Unit, which is it's a part of a government operation under not Operation Lone Star. It was created, I believe, in 2014. They deal with, you know, border prosecutions of crimes, and a lot of them have stepped in to help out with the appellate side. So there's an entire appellate team working on those cases. And so I'm involved in those, but, you know, I'm not the one that's actually doing all the paperwork and, you know, figuring things out. Thank goodness. But yeah, there's a whole team working on that.
Okay. So we kind of, if anybody has any questions about those cases, the charges, anything like that, feel free to ask. I'm trying to watch kind of as Brent's talking as well. But with that said, Brent, some people were asking what legally you can do to the president. You told me your first act as Kinney County attorney. You have tried to do some things. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, it wasn't my first act, but we did file a lawsuit against Joe Biden and DHS and ICE, you know, for basically not enforcing federal immigration laws. That was back in, I believe, July. We filed that, and Kinney County was joined with about, I think, 6 or 7 or 8 other counties as well, and along with the Federation of ICE officers, which is actually the first time in history a state or county has joined with federal agencies in suing the federal government. And so it was kind of a big deal. Right now, where that case sits, we filed for a preliminary injunction, which basically gives the judge an opportunity to make a ruling in our favor and in placing an injunction on DHS, much like these other ones you've seen, placing an injunction on DHS for them to enforce the law as written by Congress. You know, we have federal immigration laws that are written by Congress, not the President of the United States. And so that case, we're just any day now, we're hoping that there's going to be a ruling that comes from Judge Brown in that case.
So Brent, is there a way that congressional law can change to allow more of what's happening that we've seen over the last year?
Sure. I mean, and that's the way it's supposed to work. You know, the Congress is the one that creates the law. So if Congress wanted to, they could go and change the law, the immigration law that's currently in place, but they haven't done that. And so until that happens, the lawsuits are going to continue because he's not in actual immigration law.
Right. Can you break down what laws are being broken right now for people that, you know, there's a lot of questions, obviously, and, you know, Alejandro Mayorkas just came on last week with the Council of Mayors or whatever it was and was talking about, you know, that they aren't going to put, you know, criminal charges towards people that are coming in illegally, things like that. I mean, he basically gave that open door policy one more time. So are there legal issues? I mean, if they're self-surrendering and they're coming in and they have whatever claim they might have, right? Most of them are claiming asylum, and then a judge has to figure that out later. But what laws are being broken then if they're claiming asylum?
There's several of them, and without getting into the complexities of the immigration law, the main one is for asylum seekers. You're supposed to claim for asylum the first country you get to once you leave your country.
But wasn't that a Trump era thing that got overturned under this administration?
Well, let me back up. There's two things that we're dealing with. There's laws, and then there's policies. Those are two different things. The immigration law is created by Congress. Now, the president and DHS has the authority to create policies that enact those laws. But whenever you create a policy that goes against what the law actually says, that policy is null and void. So that's one issue that, among others, that the lawsuit, most of the lawsuits contend with. And so one of the things with asylum seekers is that while you're waiting for your claim for asylum, you're either supposed to, one, remain in the country the first one you come to, or you have to be detained in the United States until your hearing. And so that's things. But the policies are, as you know, are a lot different. They're basically letting them go even without a notice to appear. And the one thing important about the notice to appear, that's a legal document which sets a time that you must appear before an immigration judge. A notice to report is not even a legal document. It doesn't come from a judge. It's just kind of a memo. And then the PR, public or your own recognizance reporting. That's a
what I'm told from several sources is that they're getting an NTA with an OR. So that's wild, because the NTA might be a legal thing, and that's how they are kind of using that loophole that they're getting in the removal proceedings because they're given an NTA, but it is on OR and they aren't giving tracking devices. And then unfortunately, we know the percentages aren't great of return.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty complicated with all the laws and policies, which ones go outside the scope of what the law is. And so that's something the courts need to determine. And so that's why lawsuits occurring. So
what can be done? Anything? Nothing? I mean,
well,
where are we at for this?
The lawsuits have already been filed, I believe. More lawsuits, but they take time. The main thing that can be done is the federal legislators, they need a censure Biden. They need to censure DHS. And the governors, most importantly, I think, is the governors of all the states need to come together and basically make a stand against the federal government that we don't have a border right now. And all these other issues like high taxes, high crime, unless you have a border, those other issues come second. You're going to have high tax, high crime unless you have a secure border. That's just part of it. And so
what's the issue with having a bunch of, our country being built back up with immigration, with immigrants, right? A lot of people say we're a country of immigrants. So what is the issue of having, a new wave of people coming in? What's the problem?
Well, I would first say our country was built on a country of legal immigrants, not illegal immigrants. And the other thing is, when you have illegal immigration that occurs, you don't know who's coming in. You have no idea who it is, what kind of crime rates they have or criminal records they have, and that's a danger to security itself. So it's irresponsible to have an open border. There's not another country in the world, in fact, that has an open border. Once you have that, you're no longer a country by definition if you do not have a border that's regulated by of law. So that's the main issue that I see, is all these other issues that the media is reporting on. Until you have a secure border, they take the back seat, because you're never going to resolve the others until you have the first one done.
Right. Someone just goes, what a stupid question. It's called devil's advocate. We have to discuss the issue. Of course, I'm going to ask you what the problem is, Brent. Duh. Right. I'm doing my job. What a fun question.
Complicated issue, there's things on the state side that we can do to try to take some of the incentive for illegal immigration off as well, having E-Verify for all private contractors. That would help a lot.
And so, with that though, Brent, we know that DHS allocated, I believe it was 22,000 more work visas for, I believe it's non-agricultural U.S. employers to use for migrants, right? So what are the options for people? A lot of these migrants I've talked to have economic claims. They do want to be here to work. So what are their options? Do they have ones that maybe aren't being conveyed back to their country? Is the messaging getting lost? Like, what's going on? Because these people, there are some opportunities available that don't seem to be being taken.
Yeah, I mean, there's H-2A workers or H-2B workers, I believe. It's agricultural or non-agricultural. you know, a lot of the ranches around here use those. And what that does, it allows a citizen from another country to have a work visa to come over here for a certain amount of time, work, send money back to their families, and then once their work visa expires, they go back home, or they can go back home and renew it and come over again. And so that's the legal way of improving your life and improving your family. And
they just made it so you don't have to renew it.
Oh, they did. Well, I didn't know that part.
It's one of the, I think it's the H2B and the families.
Right.
We'll have to reconvene on that, but that was a couple weeks ago. I was talking about that. So that was one of the things that went into place right before they allocated these ones, because they were claiming that that takes up space in the system. Right, there is a backlog. We do know that. So their reasoning is that if you don't have to go through the renewal process, then you aren't taking that space for others that are waiting. So that's their reasoning for that, apparently.
Well, I mean, I think some programs like that are good. You know, they're controlled. That you know who's coming in the country. You know, they're paying their fair share of taxes on anything that they earn, possibly, or you know, and it's a good way to have a controlled environment on allowing people in the country, knowing who they are, and then at the same time being able to improve their own life back home. So that's the responsible way to do this. What's going on right now is just, you know, it's a catastrophe, really.
Mm. So when someone comes over and claims asylum, are they able to work? Do you know? I mean, you're not an immigration attorney, so I don't know if you know the nuances of all of this, but when someone comes over and claims asylum and they're waiting a lot, you know, some of them have 12 to 36 months. A lot of them are given a couple of months and then they have another court proceeding later. What is their opportunity?
I don't know for sure, but what I have heard is that if they have a notice to appear, then they are able to work until that date. I could be wrong on that, but if they have a notice to report, they don't have any valid standing to work. But I'm not an immigration attorney. I'm not trying to give immigration advice, but that's just that I've heard.
And I mean, it's a tough situation, right? Because we're allowing these people to be here and they do want to work. And then it's like, well, you kind of have to work under the table if you want to work. That seems like a miss on that, because, you know, a lot of them can't work. From my knowledge, from my conversations with them, they can't legally work right now, but they need to make money to survive here, right? Otherwise they have to have their hand out. So it seems just like a really big mess right there, because they need to work or else they need help. So
well, I mean, it's a mess for everyone involved. It's a mess for them. It's a mess for the landowners that have to deal with this. It's a mess for the county courts like ours. It's a mess for everybody. I mean, the only person or entity that really benefits from this is the cartels that I see. There's no one else that benefits from this in the long run. So
can you explain how you think the cartels benefit from this for people that, you know, maybe they're new to this immigration stuff? We've got a lot of new folks that are joining in.
Well, for most people crossing the river, they have to pay what they call the peso, or basically a pass. They have to have permission to cross, or they have to pay someone to get them across. I mean, it's up to $2,000 to $10,000 for every single person that crosses the river in their territory. And I think the last time I saw I think they're making $24 million a week in human smuggling and everything else. And then once they get across, I believe if you want to ride, then that's another add-on that, you know, I think it's about, I don't know, somewhere from $1,000, $2,000 per person to get a ride or try to get smuggled. And so at the end of the day, they're making hand over fist in this. And so, yeah, that's really the only people that are benefiting from this entire mess.
Really interesting. And it is like Del Rio, they were telling us, because before Del Rio, they were talking about it was like 2,000 to 5,000. And then Del Rio, it's like supply and demand. They were getting charged $10,000 to $14,000 a head, you know, because so many people were there. And now we know that Mexico has made it so that Venezuelans have to have a visa to enter Mexico. So now there is conversations about, you know, a lot of them are fleeing persecution or a bad situation, and now they're going to have to pay cartel more because their situation's harder to get into Mexico. So there's so many, like you said, there's benefits for the cartel in this, and that, you know, that's something I wish I could dig deeper into. It's just really not safe at this juncture now that a couple of journalists have died since I've been there.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a dangerous situation.
So, you know, getting involved with the cartel is a scary situation. I just don't know how else to get the answers.
Yeah, it's There is some Border Patrol data out there that you can access, and I might try to send some to you.
Okay.
But yeah, that's probably that's where I get the most of the data that I see is through public information.
So what is your number one concern, Brent? What, as a county attorney there, and the small, I mean, you guys have a pretty big area because it's a lot of ranch lands, but small population. You guys have a tight-knit community. What for you, let's start with in your community, what's your number one concern? And then what is your concern for our nation right now?
Well, I mean, I can't speak to much outside of Kinney County, but you know, number one, the people I work for are my constituents in Kinney County. I don't work for Austin. I don't work for DC. I work for Kinney County. And so it's the landowners and the residents of Kinney County that are my concern. And so if I can, you know, create some type of deterrent that if people know they're coming through Kinney County to be smuggled and they're going to be sitting in jail instead of just back in Mexico or released, they're going to have to stay in jail for a while. I hope that creates a deterrent to where they don't want to come through Kinney County. And now as far as Texas goes, you know, I can't do much right now. My authority is only in Kinney County. Like I said, jurisdiction, you know, I don't have any control on what happens in Travis County or Val Verde County or Maverick County. So my hope is that the county officials in all those counties try to do the same thing, or, you know, come up with another idea to try to protect their constituents. Because at the end of the day, anyone that's elected, they work for the people who elected them. And so, you know, that's my main concern. As far as Texas goes, right now, since there's not a session involved where all the legislators are in Austin, the governor is the only one that can really do something, unless he calls a special session, which would result in the legislators being in Austin to create more laws or change laws. So we're pretty limited as far as Texas goes to the governor of Texas.
Now, Brent, Sheriff Co, when I was there, he had said that Alejandro Mayorkas had reached out and talked about restarting the wall. Right. Do you know much about that? Do you know where the progress is, if there has been any made? I obviously haven't been back to Kinney County since that was talked about.
I wouldn't put much stock into what Mayorkas says on anything, but yeah, I am not aware of any portions of the wall being rebuilt. I do know of the conversation that he had with our sheriff, that he said portions of it would be either rebuilt or, you know, fixed or something. But to my knowledge, none of that has occurred. Now, is he talking about 10 years from now, 2 years from now, 50 yards of wall, 500 yards of wall? No idea. And he didn't mention that.
So do you feel like it was just lip service or something? You don't feel like...
Absolutely. Until I see something. No,
but isn't that counter to the administration though? Because Biden said he wasn't going to do that. So why would that look good for them to say they're going to do it?
Well,
I guess you're not Alejandro Mayorkas, so you can't speak for him. But what would be the reasoning?
Biden and DHS, Mayorkas has said a lot of things that aren't true. So, you know, at this point, I'm not even wasting my breath in the federal government. I don't think they're going to do anything. If they do anything, it's probably going to make it worse than better. So, in my opinion, it's left up to the states to resolve this.
So, going back to the sheriff, I will ask him when I come back to your guys' county too. Last time I talked to him, you guys had 3 deputized peace officer status people. Do you still have 3, or have you guys deputized more since I've seen you?
You know, I don't know. I just don't know. You probably have to get with the sheriff on that.
Okay. And Brett, can you talk about that briefly? About like that he was given permission? The legalities.
It's in the local government code that basically, you know, authorizes the sheriff with permission from the commissioner's court. And for people who don't realize, the commissioner's court is kind of like the city council, but it's for the county. So instead of saying, you know, the county council, it's called the commissioner's court. They basically govern the county. And the commissioner's court gave our sheriff permission under the Texas local government code I think they gave him permission for 10, I could be wrong on that. I think 10 reserve deputy sheriffs. And then they gave him a permission to use those for a certain amount of time. And I forget the time frame on when they authorized them for, but basically it says you can have X amount of deputy sheriffs sworn in for, you know, 360 days or whatever. And then once that 360 days is over, the commissioner's court has to go and either renew it, or those deputy sheriffs no longer are deputy sheriffs. And so there's a provision that in the government code that allows that to occur. And I think that the sheriff has appointed a couple to those positions. But he's really interested in finding people who are actually TCO certified, which is the Texas Commission of Law Enforcement. So they already have law enforcement status. They're just now reserve deputy sheriffs here. So if you're a deputy sheriff in Galveston County, you could come here, volunteer here, and normally someone from Galveston County has no jurisdiction to arrest somebody in Kinney County, but the sheriff could deputize them, and then now they do, if that makes sense. Like I said, jurisdiction's everything.
So Brent, what do you think? I mean, you said the cartel's the one that's benefiting from this, but do you believe there's a reason behind this? Do you believe that this is just happening, or what do you think is the motive behind this, if any?
I mean, I think probably the motive behind it is Biden's trying to create Democrat votes, and so he's trying to.
You think that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think he's letting people in to create more Democrat votes, and then granting them amnesty with voting rights, possibly.
Can I play devil's advocate a little bit right there with you? Because
sure.
So typically what we've seen in the past, and even in the caravan, what Irineo Mexica was telling me is people of Hispanic descent a lot of times will vote Republican. They vote more, on the working man side. So wouldn't that kind of counter that? I'm again just playing devil's advocate because I gotta ask you questions I've heard and know. So wouldn't that kind of be counterintuitive?
Well, if you came in here illegally and then the Democrat president Joe Biden gave you citizenship and then the right to vote, and he ran for re-election, who do you think you'd vote for? The guy that gave you what you've been desperate to have, or a totally different party that had nothing to do with you having the right to vote and a citizenship now? I mean, that you'd be more likely to repay the person who gave that to you, I think. So that's that's my opinion. I know everyone has one, but that's I'm pretty sure that's what it is. But to be honest, I haven't even given it a tremendous amount of thought, because I'm just trying to figure out how to deal with the mess as it is, instead of not the intent. I don't think they're ignorant of the fact what's happening. It's definitely on purpose. I know that. That's a fact. This is not an accident. This is not them being ignorant of what's occurring. They know exactly what's happening, so they're doing it for a specific purpose. Now,
there's a lot of speculation that it's about our workforce is dwindling and things like that. I mean, even when I was walking in the caravan, they were like, "You need us. We want to work. You need us." Like it was really interesting. Is that anything? What does that make you think? Feel? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is I do know that the state of Texas pays upwards of $30,000 a year for each illegal alien for school, housing, medical care. And so, I mean, if we're paying $30,000 for each person coming over, I'm not sure why we would need that. That's a lot of money. If you start looking at it per year, per person, the state of Texas pays about 30 grand. I'd rather not pay the 30 grand and figure out another way if there is a workforce shortage. But say it is a workforce shortage, that's when you go back to the H2A, the H2B. There's programs in place if there is a workforce shortage to address that. So I don't agree with that statement at all that we need them. Everything I can see is there's a tremendous amount of property damage. There's tremendous amount of crime going on from this. And I'm not saying every single one of those people are bad people. They're not. There are a lot of great people. But at the same time, we have laws that we have to follow. If your first act in coming into our country is the first thing you do is break our laws, to me, you're definitely starting off with the wrong foot. There's legal ways to do this.
What's unfortunate, Brent, is a lot of people, we've kind of gotten comfortable with bending laws, like being okay with, well, they're self-surrendering and they're not hurting anybody, right? I mean, that's what's happening with them.
Well, people are comfortable bending laws until it affects them. That's what it comes. Once it affects them, they don't like to bend the laws anymore. And what most people don't realize is this is affecting them. They might not know it, but it is. Their taxes, their crime rates, and everything else, it is affecting them. They just haven't figured that part out yet. They will, though.
Yeah, in time shows everything, right? So, what do you think about did you see my videos with the adults being released?
Yeah, that's a wild. I knew that was occurring, but I've never seen video of it. That's a lot of money for the bus tickets, the plane tickets, the clothes, the
The
phones,
bags.
the
Yeah.
bag, and who do you think pays for that? You do, I do, we do. That's amazing. They're
We have heard a lot about that, but we've never seen it. So that was a
they,
good that was a
they're
good tip.
and people are trying to impeach Trump over a bad phone call. I mean,
Mm.
that to me that's a more of an impeachable offense than I've ever seen. That's crazy. It's facilitating an invasion of our nation. And I think the more media attention sees that, and people realize like, oh, they're not staying in Texas. What? They're going to other states. Like people don't realize like, yeah, most of them are going to other states. They're
And
coming
again,
to.
like a lot of them are, some of them are families, and they, are claiming asylum, and they're getting mixed up in the whole thing, right?
Right.
Like it's kind of like the people that bring the tiny horse on the airplane. It's like, I mean, and I don't mean to be a jerk about it, or I'm trying really hard not to pick sides, obviously, but I've been saying like it's unfortunate they're only taking what's being given to them. Like we pretty much have an open door right now, and they see the green light, and they've told me I'm leaving nothing. I'm going to try for something. Worst case scenario, go back to nothing. They're just trying to see, and it's working.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's DHS and their policies, and hence where the lawsuits are coming from, where the governors are pushing back on them. And in my opinion, the governors need to push a lot harder, really quick.
Mm-hmm.
So, but and as far as me, I can only do what I can do, and I'm trying to do. So, I'd encourage everyone to call their governors, call your local rep, even if you don't live in Texas. This isn't just a Texas issue. They're coming to a neighborhood near you, and so you need to get on the phone, call your reps in whatever state you live in, and let them know everyone's going to be affected by this. They're not staying in Texas.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, Brent, I think that it's important. I don't want to like fear monger, scare people. These people aren't necessarily going into your communities and like burning things and stealing things, but we are seeing criminal activity in certain areas. It's not happening, but I just don't want to make everybody seem like they're criminals. They did break the law to come in, like you said, a lot of them, if they aren't valid asylum claim seekers, right? But I think it's a hard thing because they're not all criminals. So you might have an immigrant that moves in next to you that doesn't have a plot to murder you and your family, but that, unfortunately, that's kind of what we automatically go to because we don't. And I think it's because we don't know things. I think it's the fact that we aren't getting transparency, and it's COVID, it's everything. When we can't get our questions answered, it creates fear and more questions,
What makes this even more, ridiculous is that now, for ground transportation coming through the ports of entry, you're supposed to have a vaccination, or
yes.
Is there a vaccination?
So you have to have proof of vaccination or be vaccinated. Now I did ask DHS and CBP how they're enforcing that, and that says it falls under Title 42, which is the health code. But we know a lot of the sectors had pulled their testing. A lot of they don't mandate the vaccine at any of the facilities. I don't even know if it's available at any of the facilities. I think some of them are testing, and that's about the extent of anything COVID related. And at that juncture, then they have to quarantine them. And so there's a whole other mess, but they kind of brush that off as that's a Title 42 health code issue and not something that they are going to be enforcing.
Well, it definitely has multiple, this whole problem has multiple issues intertwined with it. That's for sure. But hey, Ali, I better run soon, but it was good talking to you.
It was always good talking to you. I'll probably see you in the coming days, my friend. If you guys have questions for Brent, you can check back on this feed later. If you have time, I know you're a busy guy, but if anything jumps out at you, people can ask questions here for you as well. We appreciate your time, always appreciate what you're doing. Thanks for always seeing both sides with me. I appreciate you.
No problem. We'll see you next
care.
time.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.